Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Tyler Wagner, author of Conference Crushing and many other books. He is also the founder of Authors Unite. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Pumped to be here.
We are thrilled to have you. Are you ready to get started?
I'm ready.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
I would say don't worry about how good the first draft is. Just allow yourself to write the first draft. It's better to have a lot of content to work with than no content at all. So just allow that first draft to be a little overboard, maybe not written so well, and then read it out loud afterward, revise it yourself, and then hire yourself a good editor.
And Tyler, how old were you when you wrote your first book?
I believe I was 20 or 21. I believe I was 20 years old.
So being that young at the time, and you trusted the process, you got it done, and now you get to help other people doing it.
Yeah, man, it's a blessing. I had no idea, man, when I was writing it when I was 20, I had no idea that I'd now be running a company eight years later, helping people do it.
Well, Tyler, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think the hardest part is really putting together a team, and that's why kind of services like you have and like I have are just really handy, because we've gone through the process of going with designers, going with editors, doing the formatting, getting it published and distributed in stores, and the royalties, the copyright, I mean, there's just so many things that when you have somebody that's gone through it hundreds to thousands of times, it's at the end of the day, it's either time or money that you're going to spend. So that's kind of a decision for you to make. And when there's services out there like ours that, yeah, you're going to spend some money, but it's going to save you like years of your life. To me, it's very worth it.
Yeah, I had that conversation with a prospective client earlier today, and I said, you have to spend money to make money. And the biggest thing is it is an investment. But the thing is, and this is probably the one main thing I learned in college. So for my bachelor's degree, it took me 10 years to get that degree, right? I was working full time. I went to school part time. But the biggest lesson I learned in college was about opportunity cost. And the main point of that is, what is it costing you to not do something? What is it costing you to not take advantage of that opportunity? And I think when some people just they try to get the book out themselves and figure it all out. Well, what happens? They get worn out. They get so tired. They just think about the publishing. Well, guess what? I forgot to market the book. I forgot to launch the book. So why not have someone that has a system, a proven system that works, and just trust their process?
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. And I think the more our businesses both mature, the more I'm looking for people that can help me with whatever I need help with in my business. And I want them to be the best that I can possibly find. And I'm happy to pay the premium price for that, because just like you said, it's the opportunity cost. It's like, what is it costing you to try to find all the discounts and go through the process of potentially working with people that are not as good as others, right? For me, it's just the point I'm at is I'm happy to pay for it. Just do what you say you're going to do and help me get to that next level.
Well, and here's another thing. I think this is probably the biggest nightmare for people that try to do it themselves. What happens if your book gets rejected? What happens if you have uploaded the paperback cover of your book and Amazon says, no, it doesn't meet our parameters?
Yep.
It happens.
I know, then you got to go back.
Yeah.
I know that. This actually, it's good that you just brought that up, because I was talking to a potential client, I think it was like last week, and it got to that point in the conversation, and I told him what we do. And then he was saying, if I were to try to do this on my own, like, can you like teach me kind of how would I make the book cover and how would I do the formatting? And I told him, I was like, I actually have no idea, because I hired people like within my business of Authors Unite. I have professional designers, I have
Mm-hmm.
professional formatters, and I've never, and being 8 years in the business, I have never personally taken the time to like get Adobe InDesign and try to figure that all out myself. And at the end of the day, I don't recommend, unless you are a designer, I don't know why you would ever take the time to do that. Like, just stay in your lane,
Yep.
do what you're best at, and then hire the rest out.
Absolutely. My first probably 10 or 12 books, I formatted the paperback version because I learned how to do it. I didn't find it that difficult, but I had never formatted the Kindle version. Never.
Oh, okay.
Never. Too many things. And I would never consider trying to design anything myself. I mean, I always gave the vision to my designers. They had that job. But the thing is, if you are trying to do it yourself, I mean, there's just so many things that can go wrong, especially with the Mobi. You're doing the table of contents. They require each one of those chapters. When you click on it, that link goes straight to that page. And if you screw that up, it's going to really hurt your book.
Yeah. Yeah, see, and you made it even further than me, because that's the thing. I know formatting for a paperback, it's a certain type of like PDF format.
Mm-hmm.
So as you said, maybe it is not as difficult. I never even tried, honestly. But yeah, like the .mobi and EPUB files,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I just no, like, I'm like, no idea. I don't even want to know, really.
Well,
Like, I'm happy to pay the fee, you know.
Well, and even audiobooks. So 13, I think what 12 or 13 on my 15, I did them myself, but it got after a point where I'm like, I just don't have the time to do this anymore. So the last two books in particular, I outsourced that. I found professional narrators and go, here, you do it. You deal with Audible, you deal with this, because at the end of the day, there's just certain things that you have to outsource where you can just focus on the creative process.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm just a huge proponent of, it's two things: whatever you enjoy and what you're best at. If you can find the intersection between those two things and just stay in that lane and double down, then your business is probably going to do really well. And then you just hire other people that are good at the other things, better than you, most likely, and allow them to do those things. So whatever that is for you, I would just do that.
Well, Tyler, what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about marketing. So, could you please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launches that has worked well?
Yeah, so actually, this is going to sound crazy to a lot of authors, but what I like to do is I'll create a landing page, and you can give the first three chapters away as the opt-in. Or what I really recommend, because it has the highest conversion rate, is to give away a full free PDF copy of the book. And really, here's the deal: is once they opt in, it can lead to like a short webinar, and then it can go into a course. So really leveraging your book, so that not people don't just buy the book, but they'll actually purchase a course that's maybe $1,000, or a done for you service that's $5,000 or $10,000. And what we've seen happen is, because a lot of authors, they spend a lot of time writing their books, so they don't want to give it away for free. The thing is, if somebody opts in for a full free PDF copy of your book and they like the first few chapters, the chances are they're probably just going to buy it in the format that they actually like. Because imagine reading like 200 pages of a PDF. That would be so not pleasurable. It's not even funny. So that would be a big recommendation, is just to be able to get people onto your email list, and then maybe convert them into customers beyond a book purchase, is give away a full free PDF copy of it. So that's what I'd say.
Well, it sounds like what you're talking about is essentially creating an author funnel.
Yeah.
And I know that you are one of the probably the foremost experts out there when it comes to funnels. And basically, the way I always looked at it was, because sometimes when you think funnel, it's like, well, what are you talking about? I look at it for these books I used to read growing up called Choose Your Own Adventure. And I don't know if you're too familiar about that, but basically at the end of each
No.
chapter, you could go in one direction or the other, and it would take you down that path. And sometimes the path led in one
Ah,
direction,
cool.
one would go in the other. That's how I look at a funnel. And kind of like what you talked about, right? They opt in, maybe they have an opportunity to set up a strategy session with you, or maybe they're going to get an additional guide or see a webinar. There's just so many different paths that you can provide.
There's actually, I can't remember the name of it, but there's a movie on Netflix that came out like 6 months ago that was kind of like that. It was like they'd have a scene and then you'd click a button and then you could choose what the next scene would be, like what path the main character would go down.
Yeah.
And then depending on what you picked, the ending of the movie would actually be different. So it was pretty cool.
Well, and that's essentially how I look at a funnel. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I'll say too, and again, I've heard success stories. The people on my team, they're ClickFunnels certified members, so that they can do all the trinkets and build something very complex for you. But I've just had the most success with like very simple funnels.
Yeah.
And again, I've heard the stories of like 10, $20 million funnels that have the upsells, downsells, side set, like everything you could possibly think of. But to me, it's just, delivering value and building the trust. So, value right on the front end, a full free copy of your book. I mean, that's pretty darn valuable, right? So then they opt in and then maybe they like to watch a short video that also has more value, right? And then from there, they could book a call with you. So very simple progression. Without much complication. And then it kind of like shows the person that opts in, here's the ideal path for you to get the most value. Free book, short video, phone call with me. There you go.
Yeah, and we're the same way. We have a very simple funnel, man. We've done the webinar funnels. We've done every combo you could think of. But what I have found to be the most effective is to give away your book, have a thank you page, send them an email, invite them to set a strategy session with you, and then have the thank you page turned into potentially a services page. That's all you need. You don't have to have a whole choose your own adventure lineup, but you can. It depends on how deep you want to go. But the most powerful part of this is you have to focus on the back end. You are not going to make a fortune on the front end with royalties, but you can easily do that on the back end as long as your product, which is your book, of course, and your services is leveraged correctly, both in the book and then after they opt in.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And a great example of this, I don't know if you've heard of this book. It's called A Story Brand,
Oh, yeah.
and it's by Donald Miller. Uh, Check out that book for any of the listeners. It is a great example of this. Literally, like each chapter will lead back to their website, which then leads to a course that I believe is in the thousands. And that's really what it's about. Is like the book in itself is very valuable. But then if you want to go deeper and work inside their course, then you can do so. And then I don't know what it's like to work with the author one-on-one, but that's probably an option as well. So just, make sure you give the readers an option, right? Like a lot of authors don't give readers an option because at the end of the day, right, if you read an entire book, you still have to take the action. So maybe that reader just reads a couple chapters and is like, okay, I'm confident that this person can help me with Facebook ads, let's say. And they don't want to read your whole book and deal with it. They just want to hire you. Like give them the option to do that.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you a hard time over this. I'm the one who introduced you to the Donna Miller book a year ago.
Oh, are you? That's good. No, I like that. Keep this in the interview. That's funny.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. That was, and I tell you, it really is a game changer because, we were talking earlier. I actually was doing a marketing 2.0 event this morning and did a 30-minute presentation. That's the biggest thing I talked about. The most powerful thing that you have is your story and sharing it, and that's how you lead off. You lead off with your journey, with your struggles, and you're making yourself the hero, but you're also making the audience the hero when you're showing them, hey, this is how it can be done. And that is just such a more powerful connection because scripts, pitches, none of that stuff matters. It's creating a genuine connection. And that's what Donald Miller's book does. It creates that connection where you're able to take those potential prospects and turn them into clients and taking current clients into lifelong clients.
Yes, I love it. I agree.
All right, well, let's talk about your favorite book. So, what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Favorite book is The 4 Hour Work Week. And the reason it is because it's actually what got me to drop out of school. So 2 years in, I read that book, and that's when I decided that I felt like mentally equipped enough to at least figure it out. I wasn't sure what I was going to do yet, but I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and that book kind of gave me the courage. And the number one way it did that is there's a part in the book where he says, think about what's the worst thing that could happen. And a lot of times, what we do as humans is we actually like overthink things. So it's like dropping out of school, just surface level. You're like, oh, this could be really bad. Like if I don't make it as an entrepreneur, I'll have to go back to school, and then I'll be in a grade with kids that are younger than me. Like life will be over. But like in reality, the worst thing that could really happen was like I could just end up back at my parents, and have another home cooked meal from my mother. So not that bad. So usually the risks that you're taking, the downfall is not as bad as it seems. So take the risk.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, if anyone wants to go back and get a degree, I mean, when I was getting my degree at UTA, my slogan was "Yes, you can 10-year plan," because it took me 10 years to get my degree because I was going to school part-time and working full-time. And you always see people at the school or at the university where they're in their 50s and 60s. So it's one of those things, school's going to be there forever anyway. So if you ever do want to go back, that door is always open.
True. Yep, that's true too.
Yeah, but I also think the best education is getting the education out in the real world. I mean, my dad, he probably has the equivalent of a eighth grade education because he left school early in Scotland, and he's one of the most successful businessmen I've ever known. So you don't necessarily need to have that degree. You just have to be able to put the work ethic in and have a little bit of hustle.
Yeah, there's nothing like real world experience. I school is a whole nother debate. I'm not the biggest advocate for school. I think it's with how quick technology is moving. School is a big system,
Yeah.
so it's kind of hard for them to keep up. Now, this wasn't always the case, right? Like in school, for some purposes, is still good, but I will say for like marketing or something, school is just not even close to being in the times.
Yeah, I mean, they for business in particular, they should either focus more certification based or get rid of all the stupid basics. Because when I got my master's degree, it was probably the easiest thing I've ever done. Because yes, it was like 30 hours, but it was all teaching, it was all intensive, and it was all stuff you learned from the classroom. Versus the 130 hours it took me 10 years to get at UT Arlington. But I mean, I really do feel they've got to get rid of the basics. And I know we're going a little off topic, but let's just focus on what you want to learn about, right? Business management or marketing or branding, and just take away all the stupid stuff.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I'll say one of my friends, she's 22 now, I think, and she's going for a marketing degree in college, and they were still teaching her like sending mail, like which isn't terrible, I
What's
guess.
that? What's
Yeah,
this
like
whole send in mail thing you're talking about?
yeah, dude, I'm like, listen, I guess it could still work, right? I mean, it's not, again, it's not maybe bad to have maybe like 1% of your advertising budget be in direct mail like that. But they're not even talking about Facebook ads yet. It's like by the time schools get to Facebook ads, Facebook might be freaking gone. So it depends on the industry. I will say for me, the best thing I got out of college was the people.
Yeah.
Right. So I met the people that then got me to some conferences, which then got me to learning about the 4-hour work week, which then reading that book is what got me to drop out. So either way, the path for me, the 2 years was worth it. But really, when you boil it down to, I mean, and again, I don't mean the disc school is so bad, but from reading one book, like I feel like I got more out of the 4-hour work week than I did in all 2 years of that I was in college. As far as like what the classes taught me, I think that one book alone, which was only like $15, was more knowledge than the courses. So.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think there is a lot of value in education, but it has to change. All these basics, all these silly classes you have to take, get rid of that and just get on with it. But I mean, if you're telling me there's a marketing class that hasn't even covered Facebook, I mean, if they're still talking about MySpace, we have a problem.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right?
They're not even there yet, man.
Oh man, yeah, they're still talking about CompuServe.
Yeah, dude.
Oh man. That's scary. But I will say this though, also Teachable and Udemy, they've got a lot of great content on there too. And I think a lot of time you can learn more out of some of those courses for like $10 than you can get out of a 3,000, whatever they're charging these days for a
Yeah,
partial semester.
dude, that's the biggest thing too, man. And I'll tell you this, 3,000 a semester is pretty low nowadays. Like I know some friends of mine that came out of college with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt.
Yeah.
And it is just baffling, man. So yeah, exactly like you said. Like if you want to learn something, first try Google. You could probably find it maybe for free. If you can't find it for free, like buy a course, and then if you don't want to deal with the time, then hire somebody to do it for you at a premium price. Any of those options are probably cheaper than college.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Well, Tyler, for our final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
So I think favorite quote, I can't remember who said it, but is just be. So it's just two words, and it's just be. It's kind of like this, like kind of yogi type quote. And the reason I like it is because it just reminds me to be in the present moment. Because ultimately, having goals and envisioning a future for yourself and striving for things, very, very important, obviously. But if you forget to actually enjoy the process and be in the moment, then what you'll find, at least from my experience, is every mountaintop you get to, there's always another mountaintop after that. So, to me, the mountaintops are really in the journey. So just remember, don't forget about now.
Well, Tyler, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
It's authorsunite.com is the best way. And then for me personally, Instagram at Tyler B. Wagner.
Well, Tyler, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.